Good Wednesday afternoon to you if you're in the Beltway, or lunchtime if you're on the West Coast, or evening if you're listening in Israel. I'm so glad you're with me. I was out late last night. Fetching Mrs. Hewitt and I caught the Five for Fighting concert inside the Beltway last night. Now, for those of you who don't know, the music you just heard, the bump music, is Five for Fighting, John Androzek, and he's on tour, although the tour wrapped up last night, with his string quartet, and they do fall and spring small venue tours with the string quartet, and then he does big venues in the summer with his rock and roll band. But whenever Five for Fighting and John come to the Beltway, it's kind of like a Hogwarts ball for people who love freedom. John's nonpartisan. He's not a Republican or a Democrat. He's very pro-American troops. He's performed for our troops all over the world. He is very, very much a supporter of our allies. He worked closely with people like former Congressman and National Security Advisor Michael Waltz and Senator Joni Ernst to get tens of thousands of our allies out of Afghanistan after the collapse in 2021. He has been to the Ukraine and the Ukraine airport. Ukraine has a major airport where the formerly largest operating plane in the world was, that Putin destroyed in an attempt to break the will of the Ukrainian people. John went there and performed. John has performed in Hostage Square, and freedom people, we like him. Now, John's been our friend, Dwayne and my friend, and Adam's for, 20 years. And so it's not new to us. He's a great musician, and most of America knows him from 100 Years and Superman, the concert for New York, and Chances, and he's got a bunch of hits and a lot of great music, and he performs so well. He's a fabulous performer. But it really is, whenever he comes to the Beltway, it's sort of like Hogwarts Ball. Even Snape was there. Larry O'Connor was there. And so if Snape shows up, the rest of the people are there. And I'm not going to run down the roster except to say I have never said I can play better than John Roberts. Never have I said that. John Roberts of Fox News picked up his axe last night and joined John and Five for Fighting for a couple of numbers. Joni Ernst got up and sang World with John Androzek, and she's got pipes. And the concert was just fabulous and great fun. And, I'm so used to seeing people in a little square on the Salem News Channel that, it's really shocking to see Bethany and Seth Mandel and Mark Thiessen and Danny Pletka and lots of other people who are guests on this program frequently, but they're all freedom folk. It's not partisan. We're pro-freedom, and we're pro the American military and the American defense budget. But I got to say, I was very moved when John, in the middle of the show, said, all right, let me tell you a story about Superman. Of course, John performed Superman at the concert for New York after 9/11, almost 25 years ago. And it has become a totem for people who are getting up off their back and carrying loads, for firefighters and first responders and police who rushed to the tower, for Ukrainians who rushed to the front lines, for everybody who helped our Afghan allies get out after the collapse, and most recently, for the hostages who John never forgets. So he remastered Superman. I'm going to play the video for you here and play a little bit of the audio for you so you can remember what it is for Alon Ohel last night. He had remastered it earlier with the guidance and help of Alon's mother and brother, and in Hostage Square there is a yellow piano.
All the hostages and their families, may they be home soon.
If you're watching on the Salem News Channel, John is performing both in studio and in connection with the Ohel family as they played at Alon's piano in the Hostage Square. It was very moving last night because it's pretty easy to forget this war does not have to go on one more day. Keep playing it. I want people to see it. You can both listen and watch it if you're on the Salem News Channel. The deal is, people are tired of war, and nobody wants innocent Gazans to suffer. But they won't surrender. They're defeated, but they won't surrender because they built this superstructure. And I had lunch today with Rabbi Stuart Weinblatt. And it's off the record lunch, but he is the founder of the Zionist Rabbinic Coalition. And we met by unusual circumstances. And we were talking about how the American Jewish community has been very solid throughout, but it's very hard to find anyone who actually speaks for them or can, with authority, address the complexities of Israeli politics. Because I don't get it. Netanyahu, the prime minister, had a press conference today. He said, first of all, our conditions for Gaza are the Trump plan. And secondly, he rejects the Supreme Court's ruling, and he rejects the Attorney General. Again, it's not my country, it's not my Supreme Court, it's not my Attorney General, but she does seem to me to be a narcissist. And the Israeli Supreme Court seems to me to be out of control, completely out of control, and desperate. And Netanyahu did win. And he's balancing the lives of 20 hostages. Keep playing that, would you? It's not over yet. And that's Alon Ohel, if you're watching on the Salem News Channel. That's him playing his own piano. So when John played this last night, I thought to myself, when was the last time you saw an American musician step up other than John? John referenced the fact that there was an anti-Israel throwdown at Coachella, and there was no blowback from the industry. It was a racist, absolutely anti-Semitic throwdown. And Israel was invaded. Can we just remember the facts? Israel was invaded on 10/7. 1,200 people were massacred. 250 people were taken hostage. And they're still there. There's still 20 people. The war can be over tomorrow. Could have been over a year ago. But I speculated today, talking to the rabbi, part of the problem may be Sinwar was a psychopath and DF was a psychopath. So Hamas was run by, A-level psychopath, genius psychopaths. And Israel killed them all. And then they wiped out the second line. They're down to Mohammed Sinwar, who's like the C team, the little brother who gets to play because big brother is LeBron, and the LeBron of terrorists. And then he gets killed. I don't think they have anyone to deal with. And this is going to end with Hamas fleeing in disarray. And Israel's going to reoccupy all of Gaza, and that's all there is to it. It's going to be like Judea and Samaria. It's going to be occupied until the world agrees on what to do, and that will be up to the Arab world, to the progressive leaders in the Arab world, and they do exist, like MBZ and MBS was coming around, to take ownership of that and help rebuild it. But I was very glad to hear someone in America, a culture leader, and that's John, stand up and just say, hey, we can't forget these hostages and the industry which prides itself on being activist and prides itself on being at the front. And if you were a kid in the 60s and the 70s, that really resonates. Ohio by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Adam, if you can pull that up. That's all about Kent State. So every musician had a position on Vietnam. And then every musician had a position on starvation in Africa. And every musician had a position on everything until Israel's invaded and it's Jews getting slaughtered and it's the Holocaust 2.0. And Hamas would have killed not only 1,200 or 12,000, but 120,000. All right, this is the tradition in which John worked. Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, doing an activist song when they feel called to it. And that's not unusual, and it's perfectly okay. I've never been part of the shut up and sing crowd. You can have your political opinions, left, right, or center. I just don't understand how an entire industry can fall silent. I also don't understand why the Zionist Rabbinic Coalition only has 1,000 affiliates. They've only been around for a couple of years, and Rabbi Weinblatt's doing great work. But I hope if you're a rabbi or a friend of a rabbi, you go find the Zionist Rabbinic Coalition, because it got started in a very unusual way, and the rabbi can tell you about it. It's not my faith, it's not my country, but I do believe we all have a interest in basic human rights like getting the hostages out, and we forget that too often. Trump doesn't. America doesn't. And Trump told the Gulf Cooperation Council last week, release the hostage as the first step towards peace. He's right. Don't forget that. President Trump had a gaggle today. I was listening to the commentary podcast as I was driving downtown today for lunch, and they were pointing out that the infirmity issue was quite obvious throughout the Biden presidency. I'm not interested in going after journalists who fumbled the ball. I know we didn't. I know we were on top of it from when he ran for president. And the word infirmity, if it was used by someone other than me earlier than me, more honor to you. I wasn't late to the show, and it didn't require any great reportorial chops to know the president was infirm and increasingly impaired and obviously unable to do the job. And yet nobody spoke up in the mainstream Beltway legacy media until after Joe Biden could no longer do them any damage. That's the basic transactional nature of the Beltway. And I'm going to read Original Sin by Jake and Alex. I'm going to have them on the program. I'm not interested in what they said and when they didn't say it. I'm interested in what they learned and what they put in the book, and I'll take away what I need from it. Now, Donald Trump, as I think Matt Continetti pointed out today on the commentary podcast, which is great, except for Mark Halperin making fun of Golden Dome. And Mark, stay in your lane. You're a great political reporter. You have great sources. You do not know anything about defense, and the fact that you undertake Golden Dome is itself its own benefit. And we are dealing with a different kind of deterrent model, and we need a new one because of hypersonic. There is no abroad. There is no abroad. And if one gets through, it's not destabilizing. I don't know where you learn your mutual assured destruction theory, but it wasn't from anyone like Stanley Hoffman or Henry Kissinger or Richard Nixon, because you don't get it. So just stay in your lane. Don't badmouth Golden Dome. We need Golden Dome, largely because of rogue actors, not state actors, not thousands of drones coming at us, because that's the end of the world. We need Golden Dome because of the Houthis and the fact that Iran keeps giving ballistic missile technology to crazy fanatics. We need Golden Dome because we need Golden Dome. And the president talked about it yesterday. Had Senator Banks and Kramer there, trying to get them both on. Had the general from Space Force. He had everything he needed. He laid it out. It's going to work. And I don't know if he can get it done by the end of this term, but technology is moving so fast that I wouldn't doubt it. That's the one thing I disagree with Abe, saying the president was over-promising. No, he's pushing by promise. And that has a great way of focusing the mind when you're about to hang on metrics that you can't meet. Well, they couldn't meet any metrics on Apollo 13 either. No way to bring those people back safe and alive. But they did it because they had a deadline. They were going to run out of oxygen. They had to come back in. They had to figure something out. And if you've never seen Apollo 13, we got to figure something out on missile defense. The good news is Israel has done a lot of the first phase work. We're going to take up the second phase work, and we've got the best tech in the world, and we can protect the United States. I can't believe anyone would say we shouldn't try and do it. Of course we should try and do it. So Donald Trump had South African President Cyril Ramaphosa in the Oval today, and of course he did a gaggle. Start with cut number one.
What would you like President Ramaphosa to do about the situation that we've just seen on the screen?
I don't know. Look, these are articles over the last few days. Death of people. Death. 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 Horrible death. Death. I don't know.
But you know that
To pick anyone, white South Africans are fleeing because of the violence and racist laws. And this is all, I mean, I'll give these to you. So when you say, what would I like to do? I don't know what to do. Look at this. White South African couples say that they were attacked violently.
President Trump, when will you go and see for yourself if it is indeed true?
Well, I could do that. Look, here's burial sites all over the place. These are all white farmers that are being buried. And he asks about a jet that was given. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You know, you are so bad. You're such a bad reporter. This is one after another. This family was wiped out. I'm just looking.
Can we get a report from President Ramaphosa?
These articles in his hand, if you're in your car driving home from work. He's just running through article after article and talking to people. And then he directly talks to President Ramaphosa. Cut number 2.
Let me clarify that, because what you saw, the speeches that were being made, one, that is not government policy. We have a multi-party democracy in South Africa that allows people to express themselves, political parties to adhere to various policies, and in many cases, or in some cases, those policies do not go along with government policy. Our government policy is completely against what he was saying, even in the parliament. And they're a small minority party, which is allowed to exist in terms of our constitution.
But you do allow them to take land.
No.
You do allow them to take land.
Nobody can
and
take
then when
land.
they take the land, they kill the white farmer. And when they kill the white farmer, nothing happens to them.
No, there is
Nothing happens to
There
them.
is criminality in our country. People who do get killed, unfortunately, through criminal activity, are not only white people. Majority of them are black people. And we have now
The
been
farmers are
utilizing.
black. The farmers are not black.
We
I don't
now-
say that's good or bad, but the farmers are not black. And the people that are being killed in large numbers, and you saw all those grave sites, and those are people that loved ones going, I guess on a Sunday morning, they told me, to pay respect to their loved ones that were killed. Their heads chopped off. They died violently. And, you know, I mean, we're here to talk about it, and I didn't know we'd get involved here. But I will say this, that if the news wasn't fake, like NBC, which is fake news, totally, one of the worst, ABC, NBC, CBS, horrible. But if they weren't fake news like this jerk that we have here, if we had real reporters, they'd be covering it. But the fake news in this country doesn't talk about that. They don't want to talk about it, but now they have to talk about it, but they won't.
Okay, one more cut before the break. Cut number 3, Donald Trump with Cyril Ramaphosa again.
We have hundreds of people, thousands of people trying to come into our country because they feel they're going to be killed and their land is going to be confiscated. And you do have laws that were passed that gives you the right to confiscate land for no payment. You can take away land for no payment.
I want to clarify that, because we have a constitution. Our constitution guarantees and protects the sanctity of tenure of land ownership. And that constitution protects all South Africans with regard to land ownership. However, we do say, because we've got to deal with the past, the government, and as your government also has the right to expropriate land for public use.
And you're doing that.
And we've never really gotten underway with that. And we are going to be doing so.
You're taking people's land away
We have not.
from them.
We have,
And those people, in many cases, are being executed. They're being executed. And they happen to be white, and most of them happen to be farmers. And that's a
Tough
situation.
talk. There is no Fifth Amendment in South Africa that works, that guarantees property shall not be taken without just compensation for public use. We've kind of done away with the public use requirement, but we still require just compensation. Prime Minister Netanyahu earlier this afternoon said, quote, "The world is telling us to end the war. I am prepared to end the war according to clear conditions. Hamas lays down its weapon, steps down from power, returns all the hostages, Gaza is demilitarized, and we implement the Trump plan." Hamas spokesman Jihad Ta responded, "Netanyahu's statements are a continuation of the policy of evasion. His conditions and dictates are completely rejected. We will not give up the weapons of resistance, and we entirely refuse the demand to expel the resistance leadership from the Gaza Strip." There you have it. Hamas is the only defeated power I've ever known that won't surrender. They're like the fabled Japanese soldier alone on an island on Guam and living in the jungle. That actually happened. There was a Japanese soldier in Guam who didn't know the war was over. And as a result, we are where we were yesterday and where we've been for 18 months, 19 months. Let's look to something more uplifting if we can. Angel Tree. Your folks are being wonderful again. Thank you. There are hundreds of thousands of children in the United States who would love to go to camp this summer, but mom or dad are behind bars. The family's resources are stretched. They're not going to get to camp unless you get them to camp. And Prison Fellowship's Angel Tree Ministry puts on a wonderful camp program, $200 per kid. You can sponsor a kid going to camp for a week for $200. Give a listen to Anna, an Angel Tree camp counselor whose own father was in prison when she was grown up.
Working with Angel Tree campers, I've gotten to learn what it looks like to live without a dad, but also what it looks like to have faith in an eternal father and get to spur those kids on. They might feel different or lonely, but that they have an eternal father who loves them and cares for them so much more than they even realize. And so that's been a really cool blessing of working with Angel Tree campers, because I relate to them in a way that maybe a different counselor at the camp might not relate to them.
Now you can give that kid a week at camp if you call 888-206-2764. 888-206-2764, or go over to HughHewitt.com and find the banner at the top. And you won't ever meet this kid this side of heaven, but they'll know their whole life will be like Anna. Well, the trajectory changes. You can do that. Thank you in advance for your generosity. Thanks to those of you who already stepped up and given. Now, Generalissimo, who is, of course, spokesperson for myphdweightloss.com, 864-644-1900. That's
864-644-1900.
I wanted to have a commentary on concert food. So where we went, I don't think there's anything on concert food menu that fits on the MyPhD weight loss program. Do you think there is?
It depends on the venue. It depends on where you go. Where you saw John Ondrasik, my guess is probably not. Where I saw John Ondrasik, there absolutely was. I went to the Coach House in Southern California.
I've seen John at the Coach House. The Coach House has beer. That's not on the menu.
Well, but that doesn't mean that's what I drank. But what I did eat was a very nice filet and steak, chicken, all that's that's absolutely right in the wheelhouse. You can find good food.
Well, my PhD weight loss, I want to know one thing about the program. Do they refer to pizza as pizza, or do they call it flatbread, which I think is a pernicious development in the culture?
No, they call pizza essentially flattened beer. Beer is basically liquid bread.
So I'm just saying that my PhD weight loss,
864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900.
Although you lost 50 pounds on it, people who love pizza as much as I do, and I don't want it called flatbread. When did that start, by the way? Larry O'Connor started?
Delusional people. It came from delusional people, yes.
Snape. Flatbread is not a thing. I don't know why we changed pizza to flatbread, but they did at the venue last night, but it's not on there. Let me take my relief factor, because I need this after the day and night. When you go to a concert and you stay out late, I didn't even stick around to play with all of the Freedom folk who were there.
You didn't play with John?
I did not. They were doing a jam afterwards, but I had to get home. I'm a new grandfather again. I have things to do. Here's Carrion and Curcumin, resveratrol, and omega, and the post-jam was just too late for me. I got work to do. I had meetings to do this morning. But I know one thing. Larry O'Connor can't play anything. And so John Roberts can play. I mean, that man can play. Joni Ernst can sing. I was kind of surprised by all that, as everybody involved was kind of, whoa, look at Roberts go. And I wish I'd brought my axe. Relief Factor. Call 1-800-4 and the word relief. Get your starter pack at relieffactor.com. $19.95, less than $1 a day for 3 weeks at relieffactor.com. This is how Fight for Fighting and John Ondrasik closed the show last night, the encore. And John Roberts. Look, I don't want to throw any shade on Brian May. Look, when I had to step in, I had to step in, but I never had to step in for Brian May, so he's pretty good. And John Roberts really had this down. I'm not going to say that he's Brian May level, but it was very, very good. And I think I admire someone who hasn't done a lot of studio work, stepping up there and just picking up the action, going at it, and well done. And Androzik's about one of the few people who got Freddie's range. And it actually was pretty amazing. Good stuff. All right, let's get back to work here. Donald Trump had a long gaggle today, and I'm going to skip over. Let's go to, I like Peter Alexander. I've been friends with Peter for a long time, but if he wants to be a Bobo doll, he can be a Bobo doll, and Trump will make him into a Bobo doll. Cut number 8.
Mr. President, the Pentagon announced that it would be accepting a Qatari jet to be used as Air Force One.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? You know,
the Pentagon.
You gotta get out of here. What does this have to do with the Qatari jet? They're giving the United States Air Force a jet, okay? And it's a great thing. We're talking about a lot of other things. It's NBC trying to get off the subject of what you just saw. You are a real, you're a terrible reporter. Number one, you don't have what it takes to be a reporter. You're not smart enough. But for you to go into a subject about a jet that was given to the United States Air Force, which is a very nice thing, they also gave $5.1 trillion worth of investment in addition to the jet. Go back. You ought to go back to your studio at NBC because.
I just got to say, if you want to be a Bobo doll, by all means, be a Bobo doll. Donald Trump doesn't, he knows everybody's name, and he's trying to make a point about what's happening in South Africa, and I just really don't understand that question. It's disrespectful to the president of South Africa and to the victims of the violence there and to the question on the table, and it's not like we don't know everything about the plane already. So how have the incentives changed in the media? I point you to that. And it goes back to Sam Donaldson when he made his living off of being a Bobo doll. But it's not journalism. It's theater kid stuff. And that's just silly. Let's get to Joe Scarborough this morning. Morning Joe hosted Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson. Cut number 14.
I want to ask you about the debate because you were there.
I remember.
You have a closer look than anybody, you and Dana Bash, when this whole thing obviously cracked open and everything you're reporting in the book became undeniable to the public, not just to people behind the scenes. Your conversation with the president at the debate, you write about in the book. And then for both of you, what happened in the immediate aftermath, like that night among Democrats and in the White House?
So I've now watched the debate on TV or on my computer because for the book, to write about write the book. And I will tell you that it was horrible on TV and it was worse in person. It was worse in person. It was disturbing. We have little iPads that we can use to write to the control room. I don't know why this isn't like something I have on my desk every day.
I want that.
I know, you should really get it. It's fantastic. It is fantastic, but they don't want to hear from us. I think that's what it is. That's why we don't have all have iPads.
They just want you to rap.
But this wasn't exactly rap. So I wrote, like, when in that first answer where he said we finally beat Medicare, I wrote, because I didn't know who was in the control room, but I wrote holy smokes, because it was obvious that there was this was just historically bad. The worst presidential debate performance in the history of presidential debate. Dana wrote a note to me saying he just lost the election. After the debate, he and First Lady Biden came down to where we were, and they didn't seem to have any idea of what just happened, or he didn't at least. And he apologized for having a cold, and he said, can you believe how much this guy lies about Donald Trump, who was probably in the air by then. He left immediately. It was so awkward, I didn't know what to say. I was trying to make small talk. I had Phillies cufflinks on, and I showed them to the First Lady because she's from Willow Grove. But I didn't know what to say. Then they left. He goes something like, I guess we'll go see what the commentators have to say. And then I went to our reception, not reception, but just like all the people that put the debate together. And we were watching all the shows. And this is in the book. The response from MSNBC I thought was really telling. Because everybody was just shocked. Everybody had the same reaction you guys had the next morning, which was just like, I can't even believe this. What was that? This is a crisis. Democrats are freaking out, which made me feel like, okay, I didn't make that up.
All right, now wait, Hey, Jake, I haven't read the book yet. I'm going to read the book. I'm going to talk to Jake and Alex next week. I'll read the book over the weekend. All I remember after that debate is conservative media saying exactly what Jake did, and center-right media and new media and old new media. I'm both new media and old new media. If you go to Hugh Hewitt and YouTube, you can find my reaction, which was, God, they just confirmed confirmation bias. I had to be worried about confirmation bias because I knew he was impaired and infirm for months. But if you remember, a lot of the post-debate discussion was on dogs and cats and Springfield and whether or not dogs and cats were being eaten in Springfield. I would bet, I don't know, that more time was given in legacy media to dogs and cats than to the obvious situation that we were without a president of the United States and the 25th Amendment needed to be invoked. I'm not going to bother to go, sunk costs. The fallacy of sunk costs is you worry about stuff you can't change. And those costs are over. I'm glad Donald Trump won. I'm glad Kamala Harris isn't the president, because the other obvious thing is she's not up to the job either. Donald Trump's doing a very good job. And that's another obvious thing is he's been president before, and you might not like him or you might love him. He can do the job. He's got the energy. But there are obvious things. I don't care about the sunk costs. I just want to know, how do we change the 25th Amendment so that we don't ever do this again? Because, I have a column in the Washington Examiner today, and I've posted it on my X account. The 25th Amendment failed. We can fix the 25th Amendment. In fact, the 25th Amendment allows Congress to pass a law fixing the 25th. It doesn't have to be a constitutional amendment. They should start that. They ought to start that, because we were without a president for at least 6 months, and everybody in the world knew that, and the bad guys knew that a lot longer than 6 months. TaxCutsNow.com, sponsored by Job Creators Network. Job Creators Network is sponsor of the show. Tax Cuts Now is where you can add your voice to the voice of millions of Americans who want the one big beautiful bill to pass. By the way, it's now officially called H.R. 1, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. I love the branding that this White House does, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Everybody knows what it is. It's the One Big Beautiful Bill. And we've talked a lot about it here, but that's just wonderful marketing. I like TaxCutsNow.com as well, because you can remember that. Go there, join the hundreds of thousands of people who have added there. Let your member of Congress know you got one of those and you have 2 senators. Let them know. At this hour, the White House is throwing its full weight behind a vote today, immediately. The Freedom Caucus is not on board yet. They're still negotiating. I mean, everyone is negotiating. I think they'll get it done. But the White House is saying, come on, let's go. And the reason they want to go is there are other decision points. There are other opportunities for pressure. Take your W's, admit your L's, accept a compromise, and move the bill to the Senate. That's really all we need to do, and we should do it now. So I want you to go to taxcutsnow.com and get in there and get it done. And there is no other message, taxcutsnow.com. The other message I got for you is that I have made the switch to Consumer Cellular, and I want you to give it some consideration as well. ConsumerCellular.com/Hugh. ConsumerCellular.com/Hugh. Big Cellular probably has you trapped in a plan you don't need, paying for more bandwidth than you need. If you need unlimited bandwidth, you don't have to sacrifice coverage. You can have savings without sacrifice. You can get 2 lines, unlimited data, $60 a month, second month free, if you go to ConsumerCellular.com/Hugh. ConsumerCellular.com/Hugh. Or you can call 1-800-411-4454. 1-800-411-4454. If you don't know how much you're paying for your cellular, you're paying too much. Because they're not telling you that. They're not sending you that. They're not messaging you how much you're saying. And if you're paying for unlimited data and you're over 50, you're probably paying for too much. You might be able to do 10 gigs a month or 5 gigs a month. Talk to someone at Consumer Cellular and find out. And don't pay for data you don't need. You can have savings without sacrificing quality of coverage. You can keep your number, you can keep your data, or you can get a new number and start over. You can transfer what you want. Just call them, 1-800-221-70, 1-800-411-4454. 1-800-411-4454. Consumer Cellular, can't forget that. ConsumerCellular.com, savings without sacrifice. Go and make the switch today to a plan that fits your needs perfectly. 1-800-411-4454. Congressman Ro Khanna is next, because I like to talk to Democrats, smart ones, even when they're progressive lefties. I'm joined by Congressman Ro Khanna, Democrat from California, where he represents the 17th Congressional District. Welcome back, Congressman. It's always good to see you.
You always great. Always enjoy the intellectual sparring.
All right, so there's no sparring here yet. I just want to know your reaction to the revelations in the two books that have come out, Original Sin and Fight. I've read Fight. I haven't read Original Sin yet. That's for this weekend. I'll talk to Jake and Alex next week, but I did interview John Allen and Amy about Fight. What's your reaction to the revelations in these books?
Well, first of all, my thoughts, like so many people in the country, are with President Biden and Joe Biden for a full recovery from a very serious form of prostate cancer. I really hope that he defeats it with grit and grace. I also believe that he should not have run for a second term in light of what has come out. And I've said candidly that many of us were mistaken in not saying that earlier. Now, in the few interactions I had with him, he was on his good days, but in retrospect, it was clear that he should not have run for a second term, and we should just be honest about that.
I have appreciated your candor about that on air. I want to know, though, do you think he ought to have resigned from the office or been removed pursuant to the 25th Amendment, given what we know now?
I've seen no reporting that he was not capable of doing the job. That's a very different question than could he have run for another 4 years. And, my understanding is he was still managing what are happening on troop movements in Ukraine and capable of making the big decisions. And so, I believe he was still capable of governing. That's a separate question from whether he should have run for a second term.
It's a more important question, actually, in my view, because he could have been defeated if he had run, and he would have been defeated after that debate. But I don't think, Congressman, he was even close to being at the speed you need to deal with the world that you represent Silicon Valley. You know how fast the world. Do you think he had the chops to deal with the world, given what we saw and now what we know?
Well, look, I think he had the judgment to be making the big calls on key issues, and that's the representations I've had from the White House, from people closest to him, from his cabinet. Of course, as you know, members of Congress interact maybe a couple times a year with the president, unless you're particularly close. I had a few interactions with him on rope lines where we appeared fine, but in retrospect, I shouldn't have defended his decision to seek a second term. But I have no reason to believe that he wasn't capable of governing, and that I think those questions have to be asked to the administration.
Now, Congressman, you're a very good lawyer. You're a Yale lawyer. And so there's evidence that is before us and evidence that is speculative. But the evidence before us now is that he was substantially impaired, at least a substantial part of many days. Can we afford to have a president like that in the future?
Well, I think we need to make sure that people are vigorous, are energetic, and that will be a criteria the American public uses. I think not just for president, probably for the House and the Senate, which is why I believe that future elections, certainly 2028, you're going to have a whole new generation of people, and on the Republican side, on the Democratic side, and the American people are going to demand that. And so absolutely having a vigor, but also understanding of modern technology, I think, is going to be important.
So, Congressman, I have a column in the Washington Examiner today that argues the 25th Amendment failed. I want to read it for the benefit of the audience and to remind you of what it says. Section 4, whenever the Vice President and majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such other body as Congress may by law provide. Now, the 25th Amendment failed because the vice president did not summon, nor did the cabinet ever consider the president's fitness for office. Do you think it is incumbent on you and other members of Congress to take the authority provided by the 25th Amendment or other such body as Congress may by law provide and establish some other mechanism for judging a president's capacity to continue in office?
Hugh, here is why I'm reluctant on that and have concerns. During Trump's first term, there were numerous Democrats on my side who wanted to invoke the 25th Amendment to try to remove Donald Trump from office, arguing that he did not have the correct mental health, arguing that he had personality disorders. And I just am leery of giving the power to a partisan Congress to be able to remove presidents that have been democratically elected. That's a separate question from whether someone should run and have the judgment of the American people. But you know, I think that amendment will be abused by both parties.
Well, the amendment doesn't require Congress to make the decision. It doesn't have to be a partisan body. It provides that you have the authority to establish, you as being Congress, such other body as Congress may by law provide. You can provide for a team of medical experts, and you can condition that the president submit to a full examination annual. I mean, you can do a lot of things so we don't have to go through this again. And I would point out, and this isn't a partisan hit, it's just the record, 4 times in 105 years. Woodrow Wilson with his stroke, FDR with his terminal illness, John F. Kennedy with his Addison's disease, and President Biden with his incapacity and infirmity have been hidden from the people. 2 Republicans with health issues, Ike with his heart attack, Reagan being shot, and then colon cancer, disclosed every detail, including too much detail in President Eisenhower's opinion. Don't you think that you can find some way to establish somebody that is nonpartisan but which provides against this happening again?
Well, look, I think there should be transparent disclosure. I mean, two of the presidents, Lisa, you mentioned FDR and Kennedy were, in my view, some of the greatest presidents we've had for different reasons, and Wilson did win World War I. Look, I'm all for transparency in medical disclosures and health disclosures. And my understanding on the 25th Amendment is it ultimately still requires a 2/3 vote of Congress, if I'm remembering it correctly, to actually have the removal. I thought it was half the cabinet and 2/3 of Congress, but correct me if I'm wrong on that. I don't want a body right now. If you gave that power to a Democratic Congress, if we won, you'd have people on my side saying have Donald Trump submit to mental health tests and emotional tests. And I guess I'm just very concerned if you give experts this power to remove presidents by saying that they were depressed or didn't have mental health. I mean, Lincoln, as you know, had suffered from bouts of depression. Imagine if there was a modern day medical panel of experts saying, well, he has depression. Can he really govern?
Well, you're correct about the complexity of the amendment voting requirements in the second half of the amendment, but the first half of the amendment is about the determination of Section 4 of the amendment about whether or not the president is fit. And I'm pointing out that we have a structural failure here. And it sounds to me like you don't want to say that we had a structural failure here. Is that correct, Congressman?
I'm saying that I don't believe that it should have been invoked under Joe Biden from the evidence that I have. But I think more broadly, we should be very careful about empowering experts to pronounce on presidents who've been democratically elected by millions of voters and trying to put them out of office. I believe actually it would be more weaponized by our side, even than your side, by subjecting Republican presidents who we disagree with to mental health tests and tests about their emotional well-being. And I'm not sure we want that. I trust the American people. Now, can we have laws about the disclosure? Absolutely. Transparency, yes. Get the information out.
You have the power to bring that bill forward. I hope you do. Before I let you go, Congressman, have you ruled out running for president yourself in 2028?
No, I haven't ruled it out. I mean, I believe that we should have a new generation on the Republican side, J.D. Vance, Rubio, Cotton, an intellectual debate, and I think we should have a new generation on our side. And as you know, my core platform is economic patriotism. I believe that we've had all these towns like Lorraine, Johnstown, Milwaukee, deindustrialized, and that there needs to be 21st century solutions to say, look, here's a real vision of how your family, your community, your kids are going to participate in economic success. Coming from Silicon Valley, having grown up in Pennsylvania, I think I have something to offer. Does that mean, that I'm going to run? No. I mean, it'd be premature. Right now, let's focus on the midterms. No one knows what the world's going to look like in 2 years.
Sounds pretty good to me, Congressman. You're welcome here whenever you want to make your formal announcement. You just come back and we'll talk it through. Congressman Ro Khanna, we disagree on the 25th Amendment, but I look forward to your campaign, which I think is in the offing. Thank you, Congressman. Let me check the market, as I do every day at this hour, brought to you by AmericanFederal.com. You can call American Federal, who buy and sell gold and silver and collectibles, but mostly it's just gold. 800-221-7694. Nick Rovich and his team have been doing this for 42, soon to be 43 years. They are fair, they are honest, they are transparent, they are everything that Joe Biden wasn't. And that's what we need. If you're going to buy gold in order to diversify your portfolio and put it away in a safety deposit box, don't leave it at home. That's dumb. Just go find yourself a safe depository and buy your gold and do it. I recommend on the dollar cost averaging, whether you buy it annually or quarterly, whenever, do it with someone at least as good as Nick Rovich, and I don't know anyone better. That's because for years I heard Nick sponsoring Dennis Prager, and I longed for someone just as straightforward as Nick. And you can reach him, 800-221-7694 or at AmericanFederal.com. Today was a bad day on Wall Street. The Dow was down 1.91%. The S&P was down 1.62%. And the tech-heavy NASDAQ down 1.3%. Gold, by contrast, was up 1.22% to $3,325 an ounce. So those of you who bought on the dip over the last week or so, congratulations if you were trying to time it. I personally don't believe in timing the market on anything because you can't. You're not that smart. You're not a prophet. AI doesn't work that way. There's nothing you can do that the people who are smarter than you haven't already done to hedge and to bet and to do double, triple, witching hour option unwinds and everything kind of derivative that you can imagine. Nah. Buy the market, sit back, and trust in America. Or buy some gold and some dirt along with buying the market, maybe bonds. The 10-year Treasury is at 4.59%. Earlier today, I saw that someone saying it had gone over 5%, which would be alarming, but it's not there now. It's at 4.59%. AmericanFederal.com. Speaking of that 10-year Treasury, AndrewandTodd.com. 888-888-1172. I rarely do sponsors back-to-back, but these two fit together like peanut butter and jelly. American Federal gives you a hedge against inflation. The 30-year fix does the same. Now, some of you don't want to buy a house right now because you think the interest rates are too high. I don't know what they are or what your credit rating is or where you want to buy a house or how much you want to put down. So I can't really tell you what your rate range is. It's going to be in the fives or at least the fives. I don't know. To find out, you need to ask AndrewandTodd.com. Andrew Del Rey has been my friend for 25 years. Todd Avakian for half that time. They've done my mortgages on both coasts. They did Dwayne's mortgage. They've done so many people in Salem's mortgages. Why? Because they're good, they're fast, they're honest, and they are the bank. Sierra Pacific Mortgage is the bank that they work for. And they actually underwrite their own loan. So they don't need to go and broker the loan. They don't need to go and find a third party. Though, if there's a special niche for you, they'll go find someone who can do your specialty niche. If there's something, see, I use that both ways, niche and niche. But you got to call them first. 888-888-1172. If you're a veteran, you don't want to put any money down, and you don't have to if you're a veteran. They do VA loans. You're a first-time home buyer, they do FHA loans. If you're a senior citizen and you want a reverse mortgage because you want to get money, equity out of your house, you don't ever want to make a mortgage payment on that money out, and they will not only do that for you, and it's a process you have to go through to make sure that you're sentient and you're capable and competent of deciding to do that. And at the same time, you have to be counseled, which they provide, and they walk you step by step through it. Don't do it with the guy who opened up a new business down the street in reverse mortgages because his other job ran out of gas. Go with Andrew and Todd. They've been doing this for so long. There's nothing they haven't seen. There's nothing to be embarrassed about if you've got credit wreck issues. A lot of people don't go get out of a bad mortgage because they're embarrassed by the fact that they've screwed up their credit. Don't worry about that. Think about the future. No rearview mirrors. It's my friend Brian Lanigan. I found out Brian used to say that. No rearview mirrors. Forget about the bad choices you made credit-wise. Get moving forward. All right? Go to andrewandtodd.com. Now I want to play for you. I mentioned earlier, I was listening to Commentary Podcast when I went downtown today, and Mark Halperin was their guest. And Mark Halperin is a fine political reporter. He's got great sources. I listen to what he says politically, but he said something today, and I said, well, I guess I'm not listening to Mark Halperin about defense because this is really not very smart. Here's Mark Halperin.
On missile defense, it'd be great if we had a foolproof way to shoot incoming attacks on the United States. But what you see if you go back to the SDI debate under Reagan is it's unlikely that the technology will be perfect. We see that in Israel. Golden Dome, Iron Dome shoots down a lot, but it's not perfect. And the problem is it's destabilizing. It lulls the United States into thinking that we are impregnable. And it encourages our enemies who do have the missile capacity to shoot at the United States to say, well, we can, in a certain circumstances, we can shoot a ballistic missile, intercontinental ballistic missile at the United States, and America can shoot it down. And so, we're not going to be escalating the conflict. Those are dangerous things. So I don't care how much. Been stuttering
mutual assured destruction since 1974, Stanley Hoffman and the Melian Dialogue. And I went to work for Richard Nixon in 1978 and worked with him for 2 years, wrote the book, The Real War, with him. I've been doing this I've never heard anyone advance that argument before because it's not a good argument. The idea that it would encourage our nation-state adversaries to throw one at us because we can shoot it down. I've never heard that before because that's simply insane. Nobody thinks that way. What Mark isn't thinking about is the rogue actor, like the Houthis, who, if they had it, would use it again. If they could hit our carriers, they would have. They've tried again and again and again. And you know what? Iran is run by a bunch of fanatics, and if they could get off 1 or 2 shots, they would try. That Iron Dome and David Sling and Arrow work 95% of the time, 99% of the time, is a great endorsement of Golden Dome because we can do it better because we're not starting from stop. We're not starting from way back at the starting line. We're starting with technology that's advanced and developed. And like Ronald Reagan with brilliant pebbles. I interviewed Edward Teller back in the day when I worked for PBS before PBS lost its mind. Edward Teller came to KCET in Los Feliz in LA and sat down and pounded the table. I thought he was a little bit out there, actually, because he was an old man at the point, but he's the guy who helped the team develop the atomic bomb. Said, of course we must have these weapons. He pounded the table. Of course we must do this. Of course we must look. This is after Reagan has left office. I worked for PBS from 1992 to 2002. It was after Reagan was gone, but he was still out there saying, and science has to start somewhere, right? The Manhattan Project didn't just happen. We didn't accidentally find out how to do the atomic bomb, which saved hundreds of thousands of lives. So my advice, stay in your lane. Stay in your lane, Mark. It's politics. You're very good at it. Don't do strategic defense because that was bad. That was the worst discussion of strategic defense. It's the worst discussion I've ever heard in commentary, podcast history. The worst. And there was a little pushback from Matt Continetti, and that's good. But it was still the dumbest thing I've ever heard said about strategic defense ever. And there are elementary school kids who wouldn't be that wrong. It would encourage our enemies to shoot, our nation-state enemies to throw one at us because we'd shoot it down. That's nuts. 1-800-520-1234 is my phone number. All right, 1-800-520-1234. Did you hear Khanna? What did he say? He said there was no evidence that he saw that the president couldn't do the job. And I'm kind of flabbergasted by that. I also heard him say he's running for president. I speak candidateese. I'm bilingual, Democrat and Republican. And the best way to frame the question is always, have you ruled out running? Because They either say yes or they don't say anything because they haven't ruled out running. And Roe's going to run. And that's a good thing because he's really smart, and the Democratic debates will be excellent by addition, and it may keep some of the dummies out. I'm not going to name who the dummies are, but there are a lot of dummies who might want to run again. Heck, Bernie's probably going to run again and get crazier and wilder. But Ro Khanna is a smart guy. He's a man of the left, and that's fine. The Democratic Party is going to go further and further left. They might as well find someone who can articulate the best vision of what that means legislatively, comprehensively. He's got some charisma, and he's fearless. He goes on every network, every show that is civil. But I do wonder about someone who did not see what I saw. So my phone number is 1-800-520-1234. Did you see what I saw? And now that I've had confirmed for me in Fight, and I'll be reading Jake and Alex's book, although I'm hearing we have trouble scheduling. Not sure I'm going to be able to get them scheduled before I leave for 2 weeks on the Hillsdale College cruise, which I wouldn't miss for the world, but I got to get them in early next week, so I got to talk to our booking team about that, because I don't want to read the book unless I'm going to talk to them. Time is short. I've got David Mamet coming up next week. I got books piled to the sky. I've got the new Mark Twain bio by Ron Chernow. I've got the second part of the Rick Atkinson trilogy on the Revolutionary War, and I've got to read Paw Patrol to the grandkids. So I got all sorts of things to read, and I can't read a book that I'm not going to be interviewing. And that's Jake and Alex talking with Katie Couric, and it was a good and very interesting interview. In fact, here's a little bit of Jake going off on Hunter Biden on that interview, cut number 16.
How big a factor was the Hunter stuff?
I think it was considerable. I think Hunter was driving the decision-making for the family in a way that he was almost like a chief of staff of the family.
Does that strike you as pretty bizarre?
It's bizarre because I think he is provably, demonstrably unethical, sleazy, and prone to horrible decisions. I mean,
tell me how you really feel.
Well, I mean, I just look at the record. I mean, after his brother died, he cheated on his wife with his brother's widow and then got her addicted to crack. That's just one thing I could say. I mean, I don't have a lot of personal regard for him, and just based on having nothing to do with, I barely have ever met him. I've met him like once or twice, but I knew Bo. Bo was a great, upstanding guy.
I knew him too. Really,
a real loss for the country too, not just for his family, for the country. But Hunter is not that, and the idea of letting him drive the family car, as it were, is just really, really questionable.
Oliver in California, who has an opinion on Ro Khanna. What do you think, Oliver, when you heard him talking?
Well, I see that he only has ethics for his own party. He doesn't want to be under the thumb of the party by knocking Biden, speaking the truth. He stuttered a lot. You had him cornered, Mr. Hewitt, and you did it in a very subtle way.
I didn't. It's a tough question. It's not cornered, but it's a tough question.
Well, I've seen it as cornered. Let's not try to be politically correct. The truth is the truth. And that guy, I hear him all the time on Tom Hartman, and he's total Marxist, loyalist, communist, leftist.
Oh, Ro's not a communist. I've known Ro a long time. I got to say, you're the guy that listens to Tom?
I used to listen to him, and I listen to hear what he says, and Tom sounds delusional. I've met Tom at the whole life.
You're the guy. I'm glad to meet you. Thank you, Oliver. I got to tell you about Relief Factor because I'm in the Relief Factor studio. Here it is. Took it in hour 1. Remind you, in hours 2 and 3. If you got any kind of minor aches and pain that come from commuting, if you're in your car right now in the Beltway traffic, God bless you, and your neck hurts, or last night at the concert, they jam a lot of people into small venues, and so you're kind of crooked. And if you're crooked for the whole time, and you might come out of there with a little crick in the back. That's what Relief Factor is for. It's going to be wonderful for the minor aches and pains that slow you down. You need to get your exercise. You might be getting older. Those are both reasons that you'll feel minor aches and pains. Relief Factor has the 4 natural ingredients that work with your body's anti-inflammatory system to reduce the inflammation that causes that kind of pain. So give it a shot. 3-week starter pack at 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief, 1-800-4RELIEF. Or go to their website, look for the starter pack, $19.95, less than $1 a day at relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. Selena Zito is a columnist for the Washington Post and many other outlets. She has just written at length about Western Pennsylvania and AI. Now, those words don't actually go together because there are Steelers fans there. But I'm going to let Selena Zito make the case because I haven't read the piece yet. It's behind the paywall over at the Washington Post. So, Selena, why is Western Pennsylvania made for AI?
Well, first of all, as you well know, because of Standard Oil and J.D. Rockefeller, Pennsylvania was the home of the first industrial revolution because of the discovery of oil in Titusville.
We got a punt. That was an Ohioan who came over and helped Pennsylvania get on the map. So I just want people to understand. J.D. Rockefeller was from Cleveland. So are you saying Cleveland's going to come over and do the AI?
No, they're not. Although there's plenty of probable places as well in Ohio. I mean, the Rust Belt is poised to be the center of AI. A lot of that has to do with the natural gas supply. AI is a very thirsty, the data processing centers are very thirsty entities. They need a ton of power and energy. Power that cannot come from solar or wind, but can come from natural gas, coal, and nuclear. You combine that with the institutions, Carnegie Mellon University discovered or created the first AI computer.
Case Western. Case Western.
And I was getting there, Mr. Interruption. But it was also, so that's my point, is the entire Rust Belt, in particular where you can find the natural gas, where the basin is. These, especially in these old coal-fired power plants that were decommissioned under the Obama and Biden administration, these can be retrofitted for natural gas. The data processing centers can be placed right beside them. There's just a new $10 billion one in Western Pennsylvania. They've already broken ground. They're already working on it. It is a really unique combination of labor, but also, chemists, physicists, engineers, and computer scientists, along with labor, welders, carpenters, plumbers, all the people that make it, build it, but also the intellect coming from CMU, Carnegie Mellon University, and Pitt and Duquesne University. And so this can be replicated all across Appalachian, Ohio, but also Pennsylvania and West Virginia.
Well, I'm going to give you all that I'm going to stipulate and we'll put into the record great learning institutions, wonderful natural gas. But I got to add the Pirates because they are the worst franchise in professional sports and they're the most poorly run franchise. And so if the Pirates are that bad, how can
100% agree. But you don't need to stab me with it. It's like saying that the Braves won that game in 1992, right? Sid Bream
97,
was out.
95,
Two.
95.
92.
Yeah. So but who's counting? Selena, it's a wonderful piece. I actually think Doug Burgum said on this show, he made a passing reference to stranded natural gas in North Dakota being the reason that AI was going to go up there and that it was cold. Did you write about the fact that AI needs cold a lot of the year?
Yeah, absolutely. We all need coal, right? You need that as the backup. Remember how cold it got this winter, and then also you have to think about how hot it gets. You need that to supplement the grid, where our grid cannot sustain without coal.
So what is this? There's a big cracking plant south of Pittsburgh, I believe. Where is this $10 billion investment going in?
For the AI plant, that's going in Indiana County, home of Jimmy Stewart, and it's going into the old Homer City coal-fired power plant. It's now the Homer City Energy Plant.
Who is doing it? I mean, that's a lot of money. Who's doing the investment?
So it's called Homer City Redevelopment. It's a group of investors, and they're really smart. They really understand that this is the future, and the future lies in places like Ohio and Pennsylvania and West Virginia. These are the places that, people think Silicon Valley, that's where you go for AI. No, it's going to be our home states.
I actually agree with this, and I want people to understand there's a combination of factors here at work. You got to have the high-tech colleges like Carnegie and like Case Western. You got to have a large state university like Pitt or the Ohio State University, and you got to have affordable housing. Did you talk about affordable housing? Because that's actually a feature, not a bug.
Yeah, and that's also something that is readily available in both of our home states, in both Pennsylvania and Ohio. Affordable housing is one of the charms of and characteristics of both of our states, where you can still get an unbelievable house for under $150,000.
That's kind of remarkable, and I don't think many people know that. Is that true about the inner Pittsburgh suburbs still?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'll be up front. I bought this house 3 or 4 years ago, 170,000. Great
You
house.
see that this is why people are going to Pittsburgh and Cleveland. They go to Cleveland if they want professional sports, but they go to Pittsburgh if they want a nice affordable house and they don't mind giving up on the baseball team. Now, Selena, let's talk about your baseball team for 1 second. Our friend Carl is tearing what little of his hair is left out because they're so bad. Have you thought about writing about how bad they are? They're Cleveland Indians bad 1960s.
I mean, I have, and it's sad to write about, but it's the franchise. There's no investment in the franchise. The owners don't invest. They also owned newspapers across West Virginia, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. They were notorious for reinvesting in them as well, and so it should not be a surprise.
They can sell the club for $1 billion. Baseball clubs are worth a lot of money.
They make money. That's why. They make lots of money.
We need investigative reporting out of Selena on the pathetic position of the Pirates as opposed to the boosterism for AI. But I love the column, Selena. Follow Selena at Zito Selena on X. Subscribe to her newsletter at selenazito.com and get everything of the incredible output, and pre-order Butler, her remarkable new book, on that day when the bullet hit Donald Trump and killed Cory Compatore. The breaking news is Donald Trump is going to meet with the Freedom Caucus holdouts and Speaker Johnson at the White House this afternoon. The holdouts are said to be our friend Chip Roy and a few others. I can't get their names here. They're called hardliners. They're not hardliners. They're fiscal hawks. And they probably have a strategery going on here. And the strategery is to get the president to give them a little more oomph on the deficit reduction side. And they're not going to tank this bill. I mean, if they do, the markets will tank. And it'll be on these four guys. And I just don't think they're going to do it. So we'll see what comes out of the White House. I would not be surprised to see a vote on the bill tonight. Let me remind you about Angel Tree. Our annual push to get you to donate to Angel Tree is underway. And I love this campaign. And a lot of listeners say, hey, you bring it up every hour. And yeah, I do, because it matters a lot. And a lot of different people get in their cars at different times. If you're watching on the Salem News Channel, you can see the kids who it helps. It's thousands and thousands and thousands of kids on a waiting list. If we can reduce that waiting list by one, by motivating one of you to go to HughHewitt.com and find the Angel Tree banner at the top, or if you can call them as well. Angel Tree will take an old-fashioned donation as well if you want to call in and say, hey, I've got $100 or I've got $200 or I do a half scholarship or I can do 5 scholarships. 888-206-2764. 888-206-2764. And the reason we do it in May is that the camping season is close, but that doesn't start yet until school's over. And they've got to figure out what their capacity can be, and that depends upon the generosity of people like you if you're hearing this. And you remember your own camp experience. Listen to Anna, who's an Angel Tree camp counselor.
Working with angel tree campers, I've gotten to learn what it looks like to live without a dad, but also what it looks like to have faith in an eternal father and get to like spur those kids on. They might feel different or lonely, but that they have an eternal father who loves them and cares for them so much more than they even realize. And so that's been a really cool blessing of working with angel tree campers, because I relate to them in a way that maybe a different counselor at the camp might not relate to them.
Well, everyone can relate to the idea of a kid going to camp if you've ever been to camp. I got to go to Camp Notre Dame. Selena didn't bring that up when I was talking with Selena about AI. She should have, because Erie would be a great place for AI to go, because that's where Camp Notre Dame is. And all you need to do is say, okay, I'm going to forego dinner out, date night, something like that. I'm going to find $200 in a budget that's tight. I know it's tight. I know it's been tough. Prices have leveled out. That's good. And donations are usually very strong because people can see, they can touch, they can feel the joy of a kid who finds out they're going to get to go to camp for a week. So once again, just head over to HughHewitt.com and go to the banner at the top. Coming up, Senator Kevin Kramer joins me at the top of the hour to talk about the Golden Dome announcement yesterday in the Oval. I want to get his reaction to Mark Halperin's skepticism and other people's skepticism. It's a big deal, and we need to be very excited about the Golden Dome, part of the funding of which is in the one big, beautiful bill. So please stay tuned. Senator Kramer is next on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Joined by Senator Kevin Kramer, Republican of North Dakota, who you saw yesterday in the Oval with President Trump. Hello, Senator. Welcome back to the program. Good to see you again.
It's great to see you, Hugh. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about Golden Dome.
I'm so looking forward to this because so much was said today about it that was wrong. I got to always acknowledge beforehand, my son works for Senator Kramer, not a conflict, but I always tell people. Senator, yesterday you made that...
We don't pay him enough, just so you know.
Okay, good. Make him stay later. Senator, when you made that announcement yesterday, I heard immediate skepticism from the public, and I'll play you a clip in a bit, but generally speaking, what do you say to skeptics that Golden Dome can't possibly work? It's too big, it's too complicated.
Well, when I introduced the amendments to the NDAA to create the Space Force, they said the same thing. And today, nobody's questioning the importance of a Space Force. And some of the skepticism comes from the fact that it's Donald Trump's idea, to be honest with you. But there's no reason to be skeptical because the technological advancements over the last decade or so with relation to space, the low Earth orbiting space, Middle Earth, geospatial, the autonomous systems, if we haven't learned anything, we've learned that autonomy is the wave of the future. And so the ability to protect, whether it's a small sliver of a country like Israel or an entire continent like the North American continent and the country of the United States, this shouldn't surprise anybody that we're capable of doing that these days. And to be able to do that, Hugh, at a cost that's much less than people might think, given just the innovation and the type of capital that's available for projects like these, it really shouldn't surprise people that much.
It doesn't surprise me because Israel already does it, and we're going to be better at it than Israel is, and we absolutely need it. But let me play for you Mark Halperin on the Commentary podcast today. I almost drove off the road when I heard him say this. I was going downtown for a meeting and listening to the Commentary pod. Mark Halperin has good political sources, but I don't think he has much strategic depth. Here's what he said about
on
Golden
missile
Dome.
Defense. It'd be great if we had a foolproof way to shoot incoming attacks on the United States. But what you see if you go back to the SDI debate under Reagan is it's unlikely that the technology will be perfect. We see that in Israel. Golden Dome, Iron Dome shoots down a lot, but it's not perfect. And the problem is it's destabilizing. It lulls the United States into thinking that we are impregnable. And it encourages our enemies who do have the missile capacity to shoot at the United States to say, well, we can, in a certain circumstances, we can shoot a ballistic missile, intercontinental ballistic missile at the United States, and America can shoot it down. And so, we're not going to be escalating the conflict. Those are dangerous things. So I don't care how much they spend on it. I'm deeply skeptical that the United States could build such a system, particularly in the age of drones, that would actually defend the country. I think it's a colossal...
So, Senator Kramer, there's a lot to rebut there. Take your shot. Where do you want to begin?
Well, first of all, it ignores the fact that our adversaries are building long-range missiles, hypersonic missiles, the type of missiles that can actually orbit the entire Earth before they come back into space. They're very, very fast. So it's not just your sort of intercontinental ballistic missile or a mid-range missile that's being aimed at us, but we know for a fact that China is building lots and lots of ballistic missiles that have the capability to reach the United States and Russia likewise. So the fact that there's not, to pretend somehow that we're escalating by defending against the advanced weapons of our adversary is ignorant at best. To suggest also that's somehow escalating at a time when our adversaries, to include China and to include Russia, actually have weapons in space, not just weapons that can be steered by space, but they're actually in space, is to say the least folly to hear even the leadership of China and Russia are saying that this would be escalating, that this would be destabilizing it. So he's literally using Russian talking points when he says destabilizing. That is so rich, considering that they have offensive weapons in space themselves, that somehow us protecting ourselves from those weapons are somehow destabilizing. It's insane. Sure, wouldn't every adversary love it if their other enemy just unilaterally disarmed? That's what the left has wanted us to do for years.
Yeah, Senator, he also said it's unlikely that it will be perfected, to which my response is, I was in the Reagan White House when SDI got launched, and it didn't get perfected until Israel got it working 99% of the time and shooting down missile after missile. Some do get through, but it's a lot better than not having any defense. And we're accelerating progress, I think. I'm not a scientist, and I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn, but I think we're getting better at this, aren't we?
We're getting so much better at it. Hugh, one of the exciting things about what we're experiencing, and I said this in the Oval Office yesterday, is that modern warfighting, if you will, modern military advancements are more about Silicon Valley than they are about shipbuilding, really. And the fact is that there's a lot of venture capital interested in this space, if you excuse the expression, but because it also has commercial applications. Protecting us from intercontinental ballistic missiles is some of the same technology that allows GPS to work and things like that. So when it comes to low Earth orbiting satellites, which we are already doing, when it comes to middle Earth orbiting satellites, which we're already doing, and of course, the geo satellites that have been around for years, all of that is already happening. What we're really talking about here more than anything is, and you heard General Gutlein often refer to the terms knitting together. That's the knitting together of existing technologies and existing capabilities, and then layering on top of that more modern technologies, which are accelerating at a very fast pace. And that's why, just to take one example, the Space Development Agency, which is responsible for the low Earth orbiting satellite proliferated warfighter architecture, which is just getting ready to be launched, their method of doing this is called spiraling development. And spiral development means you put the first tranche up and the second tranche up and the third tranche up, and eventually you're going to replace those satellites with the next group every couple of years. And you never know which company might come up, or what entrepreneur that's working on something in the garage comes up with the next technology, because much of this stuff is similar to really high level electronics that we already deal with on a regular basis. So there's a lot of intellectual capacity, a lot of research at big universities as well as small ones that are going to contribute to this security.
Let me raise the last two questions that come up. I raise the issue of rogue states. The Houthis are trying to shoot down our missile, our aircraft carriers. They're trying to shoot at our destroyers. We have rogue states that are going to have the technology before long. There is no abroad. Everybody can hit us pretty quickly, and Iran retails this stuff. Don't we need Golden Dome, if only to deter the rogue states? We can deter China and Russia with mutual assured destruction, but fanatics with missiles is a real deal.
There's no question. The ability to have 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week eyes in the sky looking at every area. When Iran fired all those missiles at Israel, for example, it was in many cases American technology that first saw those missiles coming. And it was in many cases American fighters along with Israeli fighters that took down just about every single one of those attacking missiles and drones and whatnot. Now, will it be perfect? It'll be as near perfect as you can get when it comes to intercontinental ballistic missiles and things like that. But these rogue states, I mean, the Houthis, what they've been able to do in the Red Sea and in Yemen against our superior systems is very concerning. I'll leave it at that. I just came out of a skiff today on this very topic. They are progressing very quickly, and to the degree that we can keep up with them, we have to always stay at least one step ahead of them. So not everything's going to come intercontinental ballistic. But remember, at the same time, Donald Trump's shut down the southern border. So hopefully we'll slow the trend of people coming in and infiltrating our country from within. We have to guard against that as well. But
last question, Senator Kramer. The president said it would be done in his term. I think that might be rosy and boosterism and leading by energy. What's it going to cost, and where's the money going to come from? I know you put some into the big, beautiful bill, but how much? What's the price tag, and where's it going to come from?
Well, the price tag is $175 billion is roughly what we think. It's what the Pentagon thinks we can do it for, and that's to at least get the dome done. And by the dome, I mean, again, knitting together all the existing technologies, layering it with others, having an open architecture, really important. When we talk open architecture, that's what allows all of these different systems and generations of systems to speak to one another. That's probably the most important part of all of this. It's also the most exciting part because it's what allows the next innovator to come up with another solution. So, but the initial phase of this, the next 3 years that the president was talking about, is about 175 billion, which obviously far short of at least short of 200 billion. But a lot of that stuff has to be done anyway. We're going to have a LEO system, a low Earth orbiting satellite proliferated warfighter system that contributes to this. New missiles contribute to this. Directed energy lasers will contribute to all of this. So a lot of the stuff we have to do anyway. It's just putting it together into a shield to protect
all of the above, Senator Kramer. Thank you for joining us. Come back and update it as we find dumb things being said about it. I'm going to ask you to rebut it. Senator Kevin Kramer from North Dakota, thank you. Standing by for word on how the White House meeting went this afternoon with holdouts in the House GOP conference, deficit hawks who want something, I'm not sure what. They're going to go sit down with Donald Trump, and coffee is for closers, and the commander-in-chief is also the closer-in-chief. I'm watching The Wire to see if we get any news on what goes on there. Let me also remind you, Dads and Grads time, besthotgrill.com. And I love talking about it as Father's Day approaches. I am a new grandfather again this week and love it. And I'll come back to that because Senator Cornyn has arrived. Senator Cornyn, welcome. How are you?
Thanks for having me.
I want to point out to people, you're on finance, budget, foreign relations, judiciary, and intelligence. So I appreciate the time very much. You on finance means you got a large part of one big, beautiful bill. How is it progressing?
Well, I think we're making good progress. The biggest hurdle, I think, is the House. And once Speaker Johnson gets the bill out of the House and sends it over to the Senate, then we get our shot at it. I think there's some differences, or will be some differences. As you know, the Senate has different rules than the House, and some of the things that the House has put in, we may not survive the parliamentarians' process, something known as the bird bath for the procedure nerds. But obviously, we've got a big job to do. One is to extend the expiring provisions to prevent a multi-trillion-dollar tax increase. Then the president's made some promises on the campaign trail we need to help him keep, like no tax on tips. But then we have a nearly $37 trillion debt that we need to begin to chip away at. And so balancing all three of those is going to be still going to be a big challenge.
You are helping President Trump get the border aspect of the bill through. Is there any controversy about finishing the wall and adding 10,000 personnel to the Border Patrol?
Not at all. Not at all. No, we saw that what happens when you get a new president who actually believes in border security and enforcing the law. We've seen a 95% drop in incursions across the southern border. The deterrence has finally been reestablished. people simply are not coming rather than knowing that they will be unsuccessful. But the challenge remains because the cartels are very creative. Yesterday in Judiciary Committee, we had a hearing on the use of drones, which have now proliferated in a lot of different places, including use by the cartels along the border. So the challenge remains, but there's no shortage of support nor resources to help get the border back under control.
That's alarming. I have not heard that. Are the cartels using it for intelligence gathering or for delivery or for both?
Both. And the concern is they could weaponize some of these drones, and there's reports that they are using them against rival cartels in Mexico. So far, to my knowledge, we haven't seen that happen in the United States proper. But once these drones are being used, and they're very cheap and easy to use, and they're using them in a variety of ways. And so that's certainly a danger that they might expand their use to weaponize them.
Now, I know you're on Intel, and so you can't completely tell us what you know, and so you have to stay to open source. But I was just talking with your colleague, Kevin Kramer, about Golden Dome. I think Golden Dome is doable. He thinks Golden Dome is doable, and I think it's necessary. Do you share that opinion? We got to go there?
Absolutely. We know that particularly with the advent of hypersonic missiles that go multiple times the speed of sound. Ironically, Hugh, this was technology that the United States created and then put on a shelf, and now China and Russia are outpacing us, but our current missile defense system won't keep up with that. And so we do need to have the Golden Dome, and I applaud President Trump for making this a high priority.
Now, I want to check in on judicial nominees because you've always been in the vanguard of moving them through. And I know that there's been one circuit court appointment confirmed. Is the pipeline open and running? Because, boy, do we need some district court judges as well as circuit court judges.
Yeah, as you know, the first term of President Trump was a record number of judicial confirmations, including 3 on the Supreme Court, which will make a difference for a long, long time to come. But initially, we had to deal with cabinet nominees and then, of course, start this budget reconciliation process. But now the Federal Judicial Evaluation Committee that Senator Cruz and I have, about 30 of the best lawyers in Texas on a bipartisan basis, are screening applicants and making recommendations. And so we are getting very near the process of seeing people nominated so we can begin the confirmation process.
And then I want to shift over to foreign relations because Mike Waltz is a friend of mine and he's been nominated to be ambassador at the UN. Is that on a fast track? Because, boy, do we need a voice at the UN speaking up for sanity.
We do. And I like Mike, and I think he'll be a great UN ambassador. Obviously, we have a lot of other ambassadors and a lot of other nominations. I think what the leader is taking his direction from the White House of what the priorities should be. But I sure would think that would be very high on the list, and I expect him to be confirmed handily.
All right, now give me an update on your campaign. I know you got a primary challenge. I got nothing against the AG. I think it's crazy for Texas to forfeit all your seniority, but he's making a run at it. How goes the campaign?
Well, it's just starting, and it's going to be a pretty quick run here because we have a primary on March the 4th. And my biggest concern is not personal to me. My concern is that the only public opinion poll that's been released publicly shows him losing to a Democrat in November. And that would result not only in the loss of ruby red Texas as a solid bulwark against the blue tide, it would also divert hundreds of millions of dollars that could be spent to pick up Senate seats in Georgia and New Hampshire and Michigan, where Mike Rogers is running again. Mike lost by a mere 19,000 votes. So we are got the pedal to the metal, and we're doing everything we can to get ready for March the 4th.
You know, that's much earlier than I had no idea it's that early. That's a very accelerated. I mean, some states vote in August of next year.
Yeah, I think we may be the earliest in the nation, And personally, I'm grateful for that. I'd like to get this thing behind me so that I can get back to work representing the 31 million people of the state of Texas. Obviously, I'm doing both at the same time, but I'm looking forward to March 4th.
Senator John Cornyn of Texas, thank you for spending time with me. I look at your committee assignments, and I can't believe you give us this much time, and I appreciate it, Senator. Thank you very much. I'll be right back, America. Don't go anywhere. That's back-to-back senators. You only get that on the Hugh Hewitt Show, and that's because we work hard at talking to the people inside the room where it happens. And I love hearing from Kevin Kramer and John Cornyn back-to-back. Sarah Bedford is the senior political reporter for the Washington Examiner. Sarah, I got to tell you something. Twice in a week, a regular guest on my program, you and Bethany Mandel, we've crossed paths outside of this environment. And I'm taken aback, and I have I know you, and then I don't know you. And it happened with Bethany last night at the Andrazik concert, and with you at a dining place outdoors. I'm just amazed, and you were very gracious. Thank you. I just wanted to apologize for not immediately. Hello, Sarah.
Hi. Oh, well, great to see you. Yeah, I did a jump scare like I see you so much on TV and on these screens. It's like, oh my gosh, it's a real person in real life.
Yeah, I'm not actually but the same goes. It goes both ways. It happened to me last night with Bethany. And so it's very, very funny when it occurs. So what do we hear, Sarah, about the one big, beautiful bill? Are they done at the White House? Have they started at the White House? What's up?
Well, so they're done at the White House. The White House met with GOP leadership today and the House Freedom Caucus members. That was at 3 p.m. That meeting appears to have just wrapped up. But back on Capitol Hill, the Rules Committee is still working through the procedural stuff for how this bill is going to move forward. They're working on something called a manager's amendment, which would sort of just superimpose the new details of the deal that Johnson is working out with various factions on top of the existing legislative language, get it ready to move through the rest of the procedural hurdles. That's been going on since 1 a.m. It's still not wrapped up. There's still no manager's amendment. And, as of late this afternoon, the House Freedom Caucus members were still not totally satisfied with the deal that they say just got worse and worse overnight.
So that's 17 hours of open hearings. I know Ways and Means went 19 hours and Energy and Commerce went 26 hours. Is it purposely being held open so that the final negotiations can occur, or is it being held open because they don't have the votes to get it over the line no matter what the negotiations yield?
Yeah, a little bit of A, a little bit of B. There are some of the more fiscally conservative members that are on the House Rules Committee. That could be a complicated vote to move it forward. And also, you still have those negotiations going on. You had the Freedom Caucus members at the White House with President Donald Trump. What appears to be happening right now is that leadership finally got that SALT caucus, which we talked about last week, the moderate Republicans from blue districts in blue states. They wanted to eliminate or at least significantly raise the cap on SALT deductions. A deal finally got struck with those members. And then, the leadership was kind of hoping that pressure from Donald Trump would bring the rest of the fiscally conservative members home into the fold without them really getting necessarily the meaningful concessions they were looking for. That doesn't seem to be working. You have Freedom Caucus members who say, that the SALT caucus, they got what they wanted in this bill. And so we need to get some of the things that we want. And leadership is afraid if they do that, they're going to lose some more of the moderates in the meantime.
Now, sir, they're in a great position. Freedom Caucus, I take my hat off to Chip Roy. He has planted a flag. He's gotten leverage. But you got to make an ask for something that can be given. You can't ask for the moon. I have suggested asking for a BRAC-like commission on up and down entitlement reform by December of 2026. There are lots of things out there. Do you have any idea what the Freedom Caucus wants at this point?
They want those Medicaid work requirements to be moved up. The original version of the bill didn't have the work requirements kicking in until 2029. Now, a lot of Republicans, I think rightfully, were wondering, why does it need to take 4 years? Are you just sort of waiting out President Trump and hoping that a Democrat will come into office and you'll never actually have to make these work requirements kick in? And they also wanted some of the green energy subsidies in the Inflation Reduction Act to to sunset faster than they would under the original bill. Those would eventually be phased out under the original bill, but the conservatives are like, why do we need to give years-long runway for those to end? Republicans should be against subsidizing green energy. And so we need to sunset those earlier. So those are the two of the biggest things that the Freedom Caucus is asking for. They also want some changes to FMAP, which is like the percentage of what the states shoulder for the cost of Medicare versus the federal government. But all of those are tall asks when every little word in the deal was worked out to keep moderates on board so far.
But the first two are core Republican principles. The work requirement is a core Republican principle, and repealing green energy subsidy is a core Republican principle. They won't lose moderates over that if the SALT people are happy, would they?
Well, you have people like Senator Josh Hawley, who is out there saying, don't touch Medicaid. You have Donald Trump at the White House, who reportedly said, don't F with Medicaid, excuse me, just get this bill done. So you do have some pressure from within the party to just stop tinkering with Medicaid. Don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. Move forward with the deal that you have, but that's not good enough.
Sarah Bedford, follow her on X at Sarah C. Bedford. I'll be watching your account this afternoon. But it does seem to me that they ought to get the work requirements in the green energy. I'm with the Freedom Caucus on something. Who knew? Sarah C. Bedford, thank you. Who doesn't love process and procedure stories? I got one for you. American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC. ALEC's a sponsor of the show. Jonathan Williams comes on whenever he's available, and we want to talk substance. But they also talk process and procedures. And in fact, ALEC is the largest nonpartisan organization of state legislators in the United States. So we got 49 chambers, Nebraska being the odd duck out, with only one chamber, a unicameral state. And so we got thousands of state legislators. And they got to work with each other and learn what's working and what's not working. Well, they voted, and the nonpartisan ALEC decided to launch their second major task force this year. It's called the Process and Procedures Task Force. It's going to meet at the 12th annual ALEC, at the 52nd annual, not 12th, 52nd annual ALEC meeting, which is in Indianapolis, Indiana, in July. And they're going to get together and they're going to talk about model process and procedure reforms for voting and election integrity. This is a big deal. If we can get the ball rolling on process and procedure reform so that every state can be as efficient as Florida and every state moves away from the California broken elections model. One reason not to vote for any Californian ever for anything is that they can't run elections fairly and quickly. And the tallies change and people get spooked by the weird rules that California has. Well, we don't have to have that. We should have a model statute, and that's what ALEC's going to deliver. If you want to follow that, then subscribe to their State of the States newsletter at ALEC, ALEC.com, ALEC.org/Hugh, ALEC.org/Hugh. When Senator Cornyn arrived, I was just about to tell you about Best Hot Grill. And I was going to do that because it's grads and dads time. People are graduating from college, and if they're going to go into an apartment, they're going to need a hibachi, right? If they're going to go live in a group home, maybe you can splurge for the Best Hot Grill medium size. If you're talking about dad or grandpa, they get the big one. They get the one I've got in California and here in Virginia. BestHotGrill.com. And why do you want it? Because it goes to 1,000 degrees in 3 minutes. It is Cellular infrared system, made in America. Best Hot Grill has been making grills forever. They make great grills. Dwayne's got one. I've got two. They're fabulous. You can try it before you buy it. They come in all sizes and shapes. All you have to do is go over to their website, besthotgrill.com, and think about Dad when you're deciding whether to get him the medium or the large. Think about all he's done for you. Think about Grandpa. Get him the big one. But if it's a college grad, you get him the little hibachi one. besthotgrill.com. I also want to remind everyone that when Donald Trump took the South African president to the woodshed today, he got questions from the audience of reporters. And this one from Peter Alexander, who I consider a friend. I worked with Peter for 4 years. Boy, this was not a good question. If you want to be a Bobo doll, ask this question, cut number 8.
Mr. President, the Pentagon announced that it would be accepting a Qatari jet to be used as Air Force One. Perhaps
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? You know,
the Pentagon.
You got to get out of here. What does this have to do with the Qatari jet? They're giving the United States Air Force a jet, okay? And it's a great thing. We're talking about a lot of other things. It's NBC trying to get off the subject of what you just saw. You are a real, you're a terrible reporter. Number one, you don't have what it takes to be a reporter. You're not smart enough. But for you to go into a subject about a jet that was given to the United States Air Force, which is a very nice thing, they also gave $5.1 trillion worth of investment in addition to the jet. Go back, you ought to go back to your studio at NBC because
I'm telling you, the context did make Peter look bad because they're talking about a very serious thing. What's going on in South Africa with farmers who happen to be white, who are allegedly being killed in large numbers and their property seized and confiscated, and whether or not there's talk of genocidal sort of intent on the part of any of the parties that are represented. It's very serious stuff. And you can ask the president anything you want. There aren't any rules. But to come up with the Qatari jet, it's so random and so off topic that was a deserved blast. Next, taxcutsnow.com is being run by the Job Creators Network. And the Job Creators Network will get the attention of the Freedom Caucus and every member of the Republican caucus, and they will get the attention because you participate in taxcutsnow.com. But you got to go over there. Alfredo Ortiz and we were together 2 weeks ago talking about this. I knew they were rolling it out. It's going to connect you with your congressperson and with your 2 senators, and it's a very simple message. Cut the taxes now. No tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on some overtime, and no tax hikes. There's a tax cut for every small businessman in the bill as it is currently drafted. I think that's why you want to go over, and Job Creators Network is really about small businesses. If you're a small business person and you're driving home and you're tired, do you want to give yourself a raise? Then go to taxcutsnow.com and send a message to Congress to knock it off and get to the bottom line. Finish it off. I mean, this has been going on a long time. I'm tired of the one big beautiful bill. The discussion is a process discussion. People don't like it. But I got to cover the news. And the news is the Freedom Caucus went to the White House. We think we made progress. Help push it along at taxcutsnow.com. Now I want to play for you, in case you just tuned in. This is the second day that I've asked you to contribute to Angel Tree Camp Ministry. I do this every year. Every year, I tell you, I love these people. They're doing God's work, literally, by getting the children of people behind bars to camp. Listen to Anna, a camp counselor, talk about why she can connect with Angel Tree kids.
Working with Angel Tree campers, I've gotten to learn what it looks like to live without a dad, but also what it looks like to have faith in an eternal father and get to spur those kids on. They might feel different or lonely, but that they have an eternal father who loves them and cares for them so much more than they even realize. And so that's been a really cool blessing of working with Angel Tree campers because I relate to them in a way that maybe a different counselor at the camp might not relate to them.
I love their video, by the way. If you're watching on the Salem News Channel, they show the big that you jump on, and they show the water fights, and they show, of course, the Bible study and the relationship with counselors. Call Angel Tree at 888-206-2764, 888-206-2764, or go to my website, HughHewitt.com. Angel Tree is at the top. No news on what the Freedom Caucus gave or didn't give. I am reading the Financial Times, though. Donald Trump attacked South Africa's Ramaphosa over alleged targeting of white farmers. Now, unless someone is going to step up and tell me that was all fake news that President Trump was handing out, I don't know why they would say alleged there, except to discredit a very good story, a story that needs to be told. If white people in South Africa are the target of racially based violence, we ought to cover it as though it was black people in Rhodesia were the target of racially motivated violence. Back in the old days, we ought to cover it all whenever there's that kind of evil abroad in the world. And I didn't think it was confrontational. I thought it was direct and blunt and necessary. And I heard the South African president's response. I'm not at all satisfied because, those people are a minority party. And well, we don't have people in the United States Congress from either party calling on the other party to kill people. It's non-responsive. It really is non-responsive. You know what's responsive? Let me remind you, I'm in the Relief Factor studio, and I'm here because of Relief Factor. I took it in hour number 1. I remind you in hours 2 and 3. Take it yourself. Feel better today, because tomorrow's going to be a longer day than today was. Why? Because they're going to be up. Those poor people on Capitol Hill are running on fumes. They must have Red Bull cans piling up. They don't need Red Bull. They need Relief Factor, because that way, even though they're sitting glued to the chair through an endless series of procedural votes, some of which are being forced by the Democrats, some of which are simply ironing out the manager's amendment, whatever it is, if you've got your back hurt or you're in the traffic jam on the Beltway right now, or you're in L.A. for a long lunch and you're stuck on the 405 or anywhere in between, Relief Factor will work for you like it's worked for me for more than 10 years. I've been taking it for 10 years. Every day, costs $19.95 to try it for 3 weeks. That's less than $1 a day. Simply call 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief. 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief. Couple more things. If you missed earlier on the Salem News Channel, I did a replay of last night's John Andrazik concert. We posted it at Hugh Hewitt YouTube. Harley just got it up. If you want to hear about that, last night, the Freedom Folk getting together to hear a Five for Fighting play, that's over at my YouTube channel. If you want to read Selena Zito's column, I talked to with Selena, you can go over to my X account. It's there. And if you want to see Senator Kramer talk about Golden Dome and rebut, I love the commentary podcast. I tell everyone every day, listen to it. But sometimes they throw a spanner, and Mark Halperin threw a spanner today. And the good news is Senator Kramer was there to answer that and push back and explain to Mark and everybody else, we can do this, and we have to do this because of hypersonics, not destabilizing. It's not too expensive. It's the difference actually between deterrence and invitation to strike us with a fusillade of drones. And then John Cornyn began telling us about, that's going to be posted over at YouTube as well, about the cartels and the drones, and that's news to me, and that's bad news for the country. We need Golden Dome. We need it right away. I'll be back with more tomorrow on the One Big Beautiful Bill. In the meantime, go to taxcutsnow.com and tell your congressman, pass the bill.